Alright, 2010 MV Agusta 1090Rr. This one has the full aero race exhaust and race map. Got rid of the stock mirrors, put bar end mirrors on, tail tidy. It also has a custom belly pan, which I happen to love. Others with naked bikes want to expose the engine, but I think the belly pan gives it a more racy look. Bike has, I believe, 6,500 miles on it, something like that, and I'll give you some commentary about it as I ride. But I think it's one of the most beautiful bikes, style of bikes out there. My wife, who I trust her appreciation for aesthetics, happens to think that this, of all the bikes I have, this is the loveliest of the bikes. I also think it has a very aggressive and racy look to it, but the best part of this bike is the engine. It is a 4-cylinder 1078cc, I believe, and I am going to record it so you guys can get a feel for the bike. Now, the 2010 MV Agustas had a very rudimentary traction control. You can see it here, TC, and you had to set it through this. It's pain in the rear end to set. I don't mess with it because I'm not that aggressive of a rider. It also has a beautiful fuel tank, but it's hard to see, but right here it looks like it's suffering from the same ethanol disease all plastic Italian tanks suffer from, and that's expansion. There's certainly the newer versions out now. Have the ride-by-wire throttle, a little more horsepower, but I happen to love this bike, and again, don't see enough value of this version versus the new version to go and trade it in yet. So let's take it for a whirl. Hopefully you can hear how it sounds as I get it under some throttle. I will tell you that the throttle on this bike is very abrupt, almost on and off-ish, and the brakes are a little bit grabby, and I've been fiddling around with the shock suspension settings to sort of desensitize some of that, and I've had some success, but not I would say completely getting rid of the grabby nature of the front of the bike. Hopefully you can hear that engine. It has a glorious sound to it. I do run the baffle in on this particular bike. On most of my bikes, and most of my bikes do have aftermarket exhausts, I leave the baffle out. I like the sound. I do wear earplugs. Hopefully you do too, for those of you that ride, because from what I've read, it's not so much the sound of the motorcycle that deadens your hearing, it's the wind noise. So I always wear earplugs at least 99.9% of the time. But the other benefit, quite frankly, is people hear you coming, and I don't know about you, but I get cut off, and I ride a lot, 3 or 4 times a week to varying degrees. And I find that you see people looking around when they hear the bike, and you may be 4 or 5 car lengths away from them. Anyway, this bike just sounds amazing to me, aggressive. It's not, I mean, it's got maybe 144 horsepower, so it's not the, the horsepower monster the KTM is or the Aprilia, but it's got a lot of horsepower and a lot of torque. Sounds aggressive, looks fantastic. I don't know. It's one of my favorite bikes, quite honestly. And listen to that engine. The other thing I like about the look of the bike is the engine head is red, And MV Agusta seems to do that only for the models that have the RR affixed to the model. So this is a 1090RR, has a red head. If you look at the base 1090R, I don't think it has a red engine heads. My Dragster 800RR has red heads, and the standard Dragster does not. But I think it adds a very nice touch to the bike. The handling on this bike I happen to like. It turns quick, it's very stable in the turns. My only beef with the bike is the abrupt throttle and the grabby brakes. When I take it in for its full service at 7,500, I'm going to have them replace the pads and see if that helps out. But other than that, I love the bike. It just looks great, sounds great. The aero exhaust really made a difference from the sound of the stock pipes. And you know, the stock pipes, if you've seen them on this bike, they're twin slash cut on the side, which I think is beautiful. But with the catalytic converter on there, not only was it, you know, extra 15 pounds, but you really couldn't hear the F4 engine, four-cylinder engine. I don't know if it's exactly the F4 engine. By the way, I did have an MV Agusta F4R, which I love, but I traded that in with, I forget what other bike, but, oh, I know what it was. I traded the F4R in with the Panigale Tricolor 1199S with some cash to get the Ducati Superleggera. The S version of the Tricolor, or the Panigale, it was a nice bike, but it felt stopped up, I'll be honest with you, compared to the Superleggera. But back on the F4R, the bike was great. I loved it. It was difficult to ride because it's a very aggressive riding stance, but it was beautiful. A lot of power, much smoother than a Ducati, V-twin. But this Brutale, which we're riding, and I should spend some time talking about, is just an awesome bike as well. Sounds amazing, very aggressive, very fast. You get on the gas and that front wheel just goes light. I've heard the newer one that has a little bit more horsepower will power wheelie in the first 3 gears, no problem. And this guy in front of me is annoying me. Can't decide what he wants to do, so I'm going to have to pass him. You guys are hearing that. It's an amazing sounding engine. I have to take it easy. I don't want to drive too aggressive. But I do want you to hear the engine. Because I think this is one of the nicest, meanest, aggressive sounding inline fours out there. The only other inline 4 that I have in the stable is the HP4, and it doesn't sound as mean as this, although that bike is, I don't know if it's faster than the Superleggera, but it's fast. And it's so smooth, I think you can ride it faster than you can ride the Superleggera, because Superleggera is, well, it's a Ducati, so it's hard to ride. It's a rough ride, which is character, so they say. I think it's character. So back to the Brutale. It's been in for regular service. No problems with it, other than the on-off throttle and the grabby brakes. I did have it on the dyno, and I think the rear wheel horsepower was maybe 138. It's only 144 at the crank. I may have squeezed out another 5 with the full race exhaust, but I don't know, on the street, I got some fast bikes, the Superleggera and the HP4 super fast bikes. Fastest probably out there right now. Somebody just lost their hubcap. Didn't want hitting my bike. And you just can't use the full potential of those bikes. And so a bike like this, that's 144 horsepower, which is a lot, and the torque where it's located in the rev range makes for a much better road bike. And this bike, it'll hang with the sport bikes, no problem. And quite frankly, people really Google this bike because of the trellis frame, and the Italians, MV Agusta has just done a wonderful job with the aesthetics of their motorcycles. I don't care if it's the Brutale, the F4, you pick it. They just know how to design beautiful motorcycles, and so does Ducati. But I think just comparing the different bikes, the MV Agusta has hands down the prettiest motorcycles. Very windy today. Finally, there's some blue sky. I want to get away from this truck. It's generating a lot of wind. The wind would just die down and warm up another 5 degrees. It'd be a glorious day. But a day like today in 3 months will be a glorious day. It's all relative. It's all about your perspective. So, what else can I tell you about the Brutale 1090Rr? It's fast, sexy looking, aggressive, gets a lot of looks, probably more looks than all the other bikes I have, with the exception of the KTM RCAR. I think that bike gets a lot of stares because it's such a unique look to it, very angular, radical sort of look. What is this up here? A trike? I've been seeing a lot of those spider bikes on the road. Spider things. I haven't seen... Well, I have seen one slingshot. Yeah, some kind of scooter trike. I think that's what that is. It's a scooter with training wheels. Big training wheels, I might add. This bike has a slipper clutch, which is a nice touch. And you kind of know you have a slipper clutch on the older bikes because when you pull in the clutch, it sort of clicks. This bike does it, as does my Ducati 1198 SP, which is another bike I posted a video on. No commentary, but that bike, it's 170, 175 horsepower at the crank, and it's not a super quadro engine, it's not a short stroke V-twin, it's a long stroke, and so it doesn't rev as fast, but I tell you, it sounds like a monster. Much more so than the Super Quadro engines on the 1199 bikes. And that SP bike, it'll be a long time before I get rid of it. I love it. Harder to ride, harder to turn in, but I think the black with trellis frame, and I put some Akrapovic slip-ons. You know, people say go Terminioni, but Ducati seems to have gone to Akrapovic on their new 1199s, and my Superleggera came with a full Akrapovic race exhaust. But the 1198 is a very special bike, as is the Brutale 1090Rr, which I'm on now, which I should be talking more about, but I'm blah-blahing about other bikes. Suspension on the bike is pretty firm, but not as uncomfortable as the Dragster suspension or the Superleggera suspension. You know, as I said, and as you saw from the start of the video, I put the belly pan on. I did the same thing on the Aprilia. I love the belly pans. If I could find one for the KTM 1290R that I really liked, I'd put one on there as well. First, I think it protects the bike. Second, I think it makes it look racier. Some people like to, show the engine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's personal preference. For me, I like the belly pan look. I really do. And we're gonna cut this ride short because my fuel light came on, and I'm lazy and don't feel like getting gas. So I'm gonna take the bike home and probably jump on another and make another video. So, by the way, all the bikes I have don't have very good gas mileage. Probably the bike with the best gas mileage is the Ducati Multistrada, but I put a race exhaust, Terminioni exhaust on that, and it sucks down fuel. But it has the best gas mileage of all my bikes, and Super Duke surprisingly has pretty good gas mileage. The bike with the worst is the Aprilia V4R. That thing sucks gas down like no tomorrow. But let's face it, you're not buying any of these kind of bikes, at least the bikes I have, because of their gas mileage. That's not what I go in and ask about. Oh, what's the gas mileage on that naked bike or that sports bike? No, I go to, one, does it appeal to me emotionally? Is it got a racy look? Is it well designed? Does it have unique attributes to it that I think are going to set it apart? How much horsepower, how much torque, and then I look at electronics. Does it have, the electronics to handle the horsepower? And here's some bikers riding on a pretty busy road, but I will give them credit. They are riding single file, which in many places out where I live is the law. If you're riding your bicycle and you are not riding single file, you are breaking the law. By the way, I'm a bicyclist. I love bicycles. I got a road bike, mountain bike, fat bike, cyclocross bike, and I try to ride about 50 to 60 miles a week in addition to my other exercise routines. And, I have to say, and I used to be like this, people in cars just don't give motorcyclists and bicyclists the respect they deserve and the fair use of the roads that they are entitled to. And that's a shame, because what will happen, and I hope I'm wrong, is that more laws will be put in place to ensure cyclists and others get fair use of the roads. And I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing. More rules and regulations are not a good thing. We have too many as it is, and my view. And again, I hope I don't offend anybody with my opinion on that. But I think they have as much right to use the roads in a responsible way as cars, and we should all treat them with the same respect. Anyway, here's the engine. Glorious. What a glorious sound. Love this bike, and I hope, even though it's a short video, you got a sense for MV Agusta 1090Rr. She's a monster, in a good way. So there you go. MV Agusta 1090Rr. Full aero race exhaust, belly pan, bar and mirrors. Let's listen to the engine one more time. Enjoy.